Have you ever stopped to think that many of life's most important rules aren't learned in moments of glory, but in the wounds we carry? In Greek mythology, there is a figure who teaches this truth in a way both brutal and luminous. Chiron, the wise centaur. While his kind was known for violence and excess, Chiron became a symbol of discipline, medicine, and philosophy. Teacher of heroes like Achilles, Asclepius, and Jason, he was the one who turned his pain into wisdom. But his greatest lesson didn't come from what he taught. It came from what he endured. Legend says that during a hunt, Chiron was struck by an arrow shot by Heracles, poisoned with the venom of the Lernaean hydra. An incurable wound, even for him, the great healer. And because he was immortal, he could not die. He was condemned to live with constant, unbearable, eternal pain. Pause, breathe. Imagine that scene within yourself, a being full of wisdom, yet forced to live each day with a wound that never heals. Isn't that also the metaphor of being human? Anxiety that returns, memories that ache, emptiness that persists. Wounds that don't disappear simply because we want them to. It's here that Chiron meets Stoicism, because the Stoics, like him, remind us we have no control over most of what happens to us, but we do have control over how we respond. And perhaps that's the first lesson of the wounded master, not to flee from pain, but to accept it as part of the path. In Jungian shadow psychology, Carl Jung described something similar. The parts of ourselves that we repress or deny continue to act unconsciously. They keep wounding us. Chiron teaches the opposite approach. Instead of denial, he embraced his condition. Even through pain, he remained a teacher, a healer, a guide for heroes, as if saying, yes, I suffer, but I still teach, I still live, I still lead. Now think about it. How many times have you tried to hide your own wound? How many times have you lived pretending it wasn't there? And yet, it's often when you face it that you grow the most. In practice, that's what mental health really is. It's not about erasing anxiety, grief, or insecurity, but learning to work with them, transforming them into strength, discipline, and empathy. That's the paradox of Chiron, a healer who could not heal himself, and perhaps that's why he became the wisest of all centaurs. Like the Stoics, Chiron calls us to responsibility. Life was never meant to be painless. It was meant to be meaningful. And meaning is born when we accept pain as part of the journey. If you look closely, you'll see Chiron everywhere. In the doctor who keeps caring for patients while silently battling depression. In the teacher who teaches courage while facing loss. In the ordinary person who, despite exhaustion, chooses to get up, work, and care for someone. This is the great first lesson of the wounded master. Pain doesn't define us. What we do with it does, and thus opens the first door to the 9 lessons of Chiron, rules not carved in stone, but written in the body and soul of those who live consciously. Rules that still echo today, because in some way, we are all heroes in training, guided by an invisible master, and that master is our own wound. Have you ever tried to fight something inevitable? A loss, a change, an ending? The more we resist what cannot be changed, the more we suffer. It's like swimming against a river that pulls us toward the underworld. That's what Chiron learned in his own flesh. Immortal, wounded by an incurable arrow, he could never escape his pain. No balm, spell, or medicine could dissolve that venom. Every day he awoke with the same wound, a reminder that his life would never be as it once was. And yet, Chiron did not surrender to despair. He turned his prison into discipline, his sentence into a path. What could have been only a curse became his greatest source of wisdom. In the language of the Stoics, this is amor fati, the love of fate. It is not passive resignation, but active acceptance, to look at what life has given you and say, yes, I do not merely endure this, I choose to walk with it. Think about it. How many times have you wasted energy trying to control what you couldn't? Trying to change the past, hold on to someone who is already gone, fight against a body that ages, or against feelings that keep returning? Refusal imprisons us. Acceptance sets us free. Carl Jung said, that what we resist persists. What we accept transforms. That is the essence of shadow psychology. When we face what we fear most, we discover that pain can be integrated, not just fought. It's like a scar. It doesn't disappear, but with time, it stops being an open wound and becomes the mark of someone who survived. Chiron teaches that a wound can become strength, not through denial, but through acceptance. And this truth is not reserved only for great tragedies. It exists in the small rituals of everyday life. Accepting that a relationship has changed and may never be the same. Accepting that anxiety exists, but can be managed rather than denied. Accepting that we cannot control how others see us, but we can control how we respond to that gaze. Chiron's wisdom is simple. There is no healing without acceptance, because denial is only the postponement of the inevitable, and acceptance is the first step toward transformation. Curiously, the Greeks said that even though Chiron was immortal, he found liberation when he offered to exchange his life for that of Prometheus, who was chained in eternal torment. Only in that act of surrender, accepting his destiny to the very end, did the gods allow his soul to ascend among the stars, transforming him into the constellation of Sagittarius. What a profound paradox. The immortal only found peace when he accepted death, just as we only find full life when we accept our mortality. So when you pause and look at your own life, ask yourself, what wounds are you still denying? What chains are you still fighting against, without realizing that it is this very struggle that exhausts you? Perhaps your greatest liberation does not lie in winning, but in accepting, and through acceptance, transforming. This is the second lesson of the Wounded Master. Fate is not the enemy, it is the teacher. To deny it is to lose yourself. To accept it is to finally find yourself. Have you ever noticed how pain, when it isn't understood, becomes chaos? An open wound can turn into turmoil, into resentment, despair, or destruction. But when faced with awareness, that same pain can turn into method. Chiron had no choice about his wound. The poisoned arrow of Heracles coursed through his immortal veins, condemning him to eternal suffering, but he did have a choice about how to live with it, and that choice was discipline. Think of the difference between two people facing pain. One is consumed by it, falls into addiction, or tries to escape reality. The other, even while suffering, creates structure, sets limits, and finds meaning. That is Chiron's lesson. Discipline is the vessel that prevents pain from turning into destruction. In Stoic philosophy, discipline is a central pillar. Epictetus wrote, "It's not what happens to you that matters, but how you react to what happens." Chiron responded by structuring his life around what he could teach, even as he suffered. In the language of mental health, this means creating structures of coping. Someone living with anxiety can set times to breathe, write, or move their body. Someone facing depression might find strength in small daily goals, making the bed, brewing coffee, taking a short walk. These small acts are seeds of discipline that gradually restore meaning. Discipline is not dehumanizing rigidity. Discipline is care. It is a way of saying to your pain, "You exist, but you will not define me." Carl Jung reminded us that the shadow, everything we repress, can only be integrated through steady awareness. A flash of insight is not enough. It takes habit, perseverance, and repetition. Thus, discipline is what turns pain into wisdom. It's the daily practice that forges patience, the steady study that opens space for understanding, the routine of self-care that prevents collapse. Think of the trauma survivor who writes every morning to organize their thoughts, the recovering addict who follows every support meeting with discipline, or the ordinary person who, despite exhaustion, keeps small, healthy habits to stay grounded. All of them are modern reflections of Chiron, masters of themselves, learning to turn chaos into a path. This is the third lesson. Discipline is the alchemist of pain. Without it, the poison corrodes. With it, the poison becomes medicine. Have you ever noticed how those who have suffered deeply look at others differently? Without haste, without judgment, with a quiet, Understanding, Chiron knew this, his eternal pain taught him to perceive the pain of others. That's why he became the teacher of so many heroes. He didn't just teach techniques or healing remedies. He taught through empathy. In Stoic thought, there is the idea of sympathia, the interconnection of all human beings. The suffering of one reverberates in all. Chiron embodied this truth long before it had a name. His pain expanded his compassion in shadow psychology. This becomes the ability to recognize in ourselves what we see in others. When we acknowledge our own wounds, we stop judging the wounds of others so harshly. Empathy is born where arrogance dies. Think of real-life examples. A doctor who, after losing someone, treats patients with deeper humanity. A teacher who, after failing once, learns to support struggling students with patience. A friend who, having survived depression, listens without rushing to fix. Pain, when processed, doesn't harden us. It softens us. It doesn't build walls. It builds bridges. But that only happens when we don't deny it. Those who reject their pain project it onto others. Those who accept it learn to hold others with compassion. This is Chiron's fourth lesson. The wound can be a bridge, not a wall. Pain can isolate us or connect us. The choice depends on how we live it. Have you ever wished that pain would pass faster? Have you ever wanted to wake up the next morning and find that the grief, the longing, the anxiety had simply vanished? Chiron knew that wish well, and also the frustration that came with it, because his wound would never heal. That reminds us of a harsh truth. The time of pain does not follow our calendar. We live in a world that worships speed. We want instant cures, immediate results, immediate relief. But the soul doesn't work with shortcuts. In Stoic philosophy, time is part of the natural order. You can't rush what can only mature. Just as a seed cannot become a tree in a day, a psychological wound cannot heal in haste. In mental health, this truth is evident. Grief has stages that must be lived. Chronic anxiety doesn't disappear overnight. Trauma requires steady care, sometimes over years. Carl Jung once said, "There is no change without suffering," but he also taught that this suffering must be faced with patience. The attempt to deny or accelerate it only deepens the pain. Everyday examples. Or a person who distracts themselves right after a loss, only to collapse months later. Someone seeking miracle cures for depression, who ends up more disheartened when impatience destroys hope. The patient who tries to skip steps in therapy and eventually must start again from the beginning. Chiron teaches us this. Pain may endure, but with time, the right time, where it transforms. Patience doesn't erase pain. It gives it room to ripen into wisdom. This is his fifth lesson. Respect the time of healing, because in the end, time itself is the teacher. And what do you do when you realize you can't win? Do you flee or face it? Chiron couldn't escape his pain, but he chose to confront it, not with the courage of easy victory, but with the courage of constancy, to wake up each day and continue despite the burden. In Stoic philosophy, courage is not the absence of fear, it's the ability to act rightly despite fear. Marcus Aurelius, amid wars and plagues, wrote, "If it is within your power to endure, then endure. If it lies beyond, do not be troubled." Chiron embodied that posture completely. In psychology, that same courage is called resilience, the ability to stay in motion even when the weight feels unbearable. Everyday examples: the mother who raises her children alone, exhausted but steadfast; the worker who battles chronic illness, yet keeps fighting for a living; the person living with mental disorders who keeps showing up for therapy, despite the pain. Chiron reminds us that courage is not spectacle, it's persistence. It's the quiet act of not giving up, even when both body and soul beg for escape. This is his sixth lesson. The inevitable can crush us or make us giants. What determines the outcome is only this: the courage to continue. Have you ever felt incapable of helping someone because you were still carrying your own pain? How many times have you thought, how can I guide anyone when I'm still lost myself? Chiron could have thought the same. He, the wounded master, who never found healing for his own wound, and yet he became the teacher of heroes. Achilles learned from him. Asclepius, the god of medicine, learned from him. Jason, who led the Argonauts, learned from him. Chiron didn't wait to be whole before teaching. He taught while bleeding, and perhaps that is why his teachings were so profound, because they came not from theory, but from lived experience. In real life, how many wounded teachers do we know? The therapist who still faces their own shadows, the teacher who inspires even in exhaustion, the friend who gives honest advice while going through their own crisis. In shadow psychology, this is the paradox of the wounded healer. What we cannot fully heal in ourselves often becomes the very key that allows us to help others. This is Chiron's 7th lesson. Do not wait for perfection to share your light. The world needs your wisdom now, even wounded. You can be a guide. Now, imagine this. What would you do if you could free someone from suffering, even if it meant giving up your own life? That is the turning point of Chiron's story. Tired of endless pain, condemned to live forever with the poisoned arrow pulsing within him, he made a choice that few could make. He offered his immortality to free Prometheus, the titan chained for giving fire to humankind. It is one of the most beautiful gestures in all mythology, because it reveals that even in his pain, Chiron never surrendered to selfishness. He transformed his suffering into a gift. By surrendering his immortality, he not only found relief, he created freedom for another being. In Stoic philosophy, this act mirrors the virtue of justice. To live not only for oneself, but for the good of the whole. The Stoics reminded us that we are part of a greater body, that every action resonates through the collective soul of humanity. Chiron embodied this truth until his final breath. In psychology, this act represents the archetype of the sacrificial healer, when pain ceases to be merely personal and becomes a channel for compassion. When suffering gains purpose, when we realize that our own journey can make the path lighter for those who follow. And this is not just ancient myth. Look around. People who transform their losses into social projects or foundations. Parents who sacrifice comfort so their children may live better. Individuals who, even in illness, contribute to research that will heal future generations. All of them, in their own way, repeat Chiron's gesture. And here lies his 8th lesson. Life becomes greater when our pain becomes a bridge to ease the pain of others. This sacrifice is not self-destruction, it is transformation. It is not the act of erasing oneself, but of transcending oneself. And in that act, Chiron reveals what is most human and most divine in us, the ability to love through pain. And then, after his offering, the gods granted Chiron something far greater than immortality, eternity in the heavens. They transformed him into a constellation, Sagittarius. That image is powerful. The wounded master, who had spent a lifetime enduring pain, was now reborn as a celestial guide. No longer a suffering centaur, but a star that would orient travelers, sailors, poets, and dreamers through the ages. Here, mythology reaches deep into psychology. Pain, when lived with awareness, can transfigure itself into light. What once seemed a curse becomes legacy. What once felt like endless suffering becomes a living memory, eternal. In Stoic philosophy, we find a clear parallel in Memento Mori to remember death not as terror, but as the force that gives life urgency and meaning. By accepting his wound and even his death, Chiron attained a form of eternity no body could contain. In Jungian psychology, this transformation mirrors the process of individuation, integrating wounds, accepting mortality, and in doing so, transcending one's limits. It is the moment when a person stops living only for themselves and becomes a symbol for others in daily life. This teaching becomes an invitation to reflection. What mark do you wish to leave? Will your pain remain only as hidden scar or shine as a constellation? What part of your life, lived with courage and consciousness, might illuminate those who come after you? We all carry wounds, but like Chiron, we can choose whether they remain buried or become visible constellations. This is his 9th and final lesson. From the wound, Eternity can be born, and thus we close the journey with the wounded master. His lessons echo within us, not as cold commandments, but as living reminders that every pain carries a seed of wisdom. And now, we end as we always do, with the words that conclude not only this myth, but every passage through shadow and light. Here we end another crossing. Remember, memento mori, we are all travelers of the shadows, and every conscious step is a flame that lights eternity.